The 2023 housing market is up for grabs, but I'll tell you what I can. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Sharon Rosa, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. When you have a second, please subscribe at the bottom of my page. In this week's video, I want to talk about the housing market in 2023 because that's the biggest question on everyone's mind. And if I had a solid answer for you that I was 100% sure of, I would absolutely give that to you. But I don't have that, so I'll tell you what the indicators are. So one of the big indicators that real estate researchers are looking at are the millennials. In 2023, about 43% of the buyers are predicted to be the millennials. So, and that's a group of people that are predicted to go ahead and buy because they are ready at this point. As far as sellers go, the biggest group of sellers used to be and still is the baby boomers at about 42%. However, the millennials, believe it or not, are starting to creep up at about 26% of home sellers. That's probably because their first-time smaller homes they've outgrown or are going to outgrow, and so they're moving to that second home that will be the home they probably have for the next 20 years. Two other indicators that researchers look at are the interest rates. Now we know that the interest rates have slowly crept up. They did get a little bit of a reprieve a couple of weeks ago, but they, as of today, when I looked it up, are over 7% again, the mortgage interest rates. Where that's going to go is hard to predict. I don't think it's going to drop anytime soon, though. So though interest rates are going up, researchers also look at the inventory, and inventory has crept up very, very slightly, but not as much as maybe people thought it was going to. Another thing people look at, and something else that is pushing people to buy if they can, is the rental rates have increased and continue to increase pretty steadily. So if somebody can buy maybe a lesser priced home, they're looking at that because you get tax write-offs with home ownership that you don't get with renting. So researchers will look at a variety of items that all impact buying a home and selling a home. So based off of a lot of those variables that go into the predictions, most real estate research is pointing to home buying to continue. It's not going to be the frenzy that it's been, but because of some of those indicators, people still need to buy a house. So that's probably one of the biggest predictions. One of the big questions on everyone's mind is, are we going to have a crash like we had in 2008? And I talked about this in another video, but with all the things that are happening, the concern is still out there because of the high inflation that we're seeing, the high interest rates, obviously. And though we did have a little bit of a reprieve a couple of weeks ago, it has, ticked back up over to 7%. And then, of course, the geopolitical concerns have a huge impact on how people feel about this economy right now, and there's no indicator that that's going to change in the next year or so, at least not at this point. So there is still that question. So even though I talked about it in a prior video, it's a legitimate concern, but the big crash probably won't happen again because the lenders aren't lending the way they did back then. There are many more safeguards put in place to make sure that they're not lending to just, in 2008, prior to that, anybody could get a loan. And it didn't really matter if they could pay it back or not, which then was the domino effect that led to people defaulting on that, foreclosures, the banks not getting their money, the banks having issues, and so forth. So that shouldn't happen again. The banks are being much more careful with who they loan to, which has also thrown some buyers out. But the loans are more solid, and the homeowners that are in their homes now have those really good interest rates from several years ago and are either staying put or are, and not only are they staying put, but they're probably not going to foreclose, because foreclosures were a big thing back in 2008. So the takeaway here for buyers is the market is definitely different than it's been for the last 2 years. There is still a low inventory, though there are a few things coming back on the market. But because of the economy, buyers want to go out and lowball. That's probably still not going to work, even though it's leveled out and it's not as much of a seller's market. Because what we're seeing is a lot of sellers are using real estate agents, and the real estate agents are explaining to the sellers that it's not the market that it was the past 2 or 3 years. And people are pricing their homes, which is what you need to do as a seller. People are pricing their homes more reasonably. They're priced where they should be. So buyers don't go in and expect to be able to lowball, thinking that the sellers have way overpriced. And also, the waiting game is something that I don't know if that would behoove you as a buyer at this point, because you might be disappointed because the interest rates could continue to go up. So for buyers, if you need to buy, now is probably the time. It's a little softer and a little more in your favor, but go in with realistic expectations and go into houses that you can reasonably afford. Don't go into houses expecting to be able to lowball $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 because of the economy. For the sellers, it is not the market that it was. You're not going to be able to get the prices of 2021. It's not going to happen. So you need to listen to your real estate agent, be more realistic about what your selling price can be. And one of the indicators of that, there are still houses out there that are listed too high. And what we're seeing is a lot of homes falling out of escrow, which means they were listed high and the person came in and they maybe took the highest bid, but then the person didn't get approved, or the inspections were horrible, and so there was, that battle back and forth, or it doesn't appraise. So sellers need to be more realistic about what price you can get for your home right now, and your agent will do comps and give you a pretty good idea of what that should be. Not fantastic news for either buyers or sellers, but also not terrible. I don't think that we're going to have a hard crash like we had in 2008. The market will probably taper, or is tapering as we speak. But if you need to buy a home, there's always a home out there for you. And if you need to sell your home, there's always a buyer out there for you. I'm Sharon Rosa. When you have a second, please subscribe at the bottom of the page. If you have any questions, you can email me at sharonrosa@kw.com. I would be happy to answer any questions you have. I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you exactly where the market's going to go in the next 6 months, but I don't. At any rate, I'll do the best I can to keep you on top of things. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you here next Friday. Thanks.